Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir, and joining me as always is my co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
Season 6, episode 21 of the podcast. And Austin, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-0 after an unlikely win in Buffalo, starting the season with a 23-16 victory over the Bills in Buffalo. And before we get into the game today, I wanted to actually kind of switch things up and talk just about the NFL in a bigger scope today because of the way that Week 1 went. Week 1 had a record week for underdogs, and it was capped off by the Las Vegas Raiders defeating the Baltimore Ravens in overtime. 12 different underdogs covered the spread, the official spread in Vegas, which is the most in Week 1 in the Super Bowl era. 9 underdogs pulled out the outright win, which is the most in any week in the past 4 seasons, and tied for the most in any opening week in the entire Super Bowl era, according to ESPN Stats and Information, and also David Purdom of ESPN as well. So taking all that into account, and we'll have plenty of time to break down the Steelers' win over the Buffalo Bills, but a game that, as we saw in our overall predictions for this past week, it bared out a lot of difficult games to pick, and that was bared out with the fact that the underdogs won so much, not just on the scoreboard, but also especially when it came to covering the spread.
Yeah, it was a very interesting week for those underdogs. Like, the only underdogs that didn't come through were the Jets, and that's about right. Like, I feel like it's just fitting for them to not be a part of this. But yeah, a bunch of the underdog teams came through. Even the Lions almost outright won. Like, they were like 15 seconds away from being able to go at least for a 2-point after like getting a touchdown. Would have been a crazy comeback victory if they made it. It was a crazy comeback that they were able to cover the spread.
And it was just a wild week. And we were talking before about how this was one of the hardest weeks to pick a potential survivor pool challenge. And I had 2 picks and you had 1, and we all lost. We lost all 3.
Oh, I had 2 picks too, so we lost all 4.
You had 2 picks? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, what was the other one?
I also did Minnesota again. You did
Minnesota twice. You doubled down.
I doubled down on Minnesota.
Ironically, if I had stayed with my Panthers pick, that would have survived. But yeah, so I mean, we can kind of go relatively in order, but the early games that kind of stuck out to you besides the Pittsburgh game, you talked about 49ers Lions. Is that kind of where your mind went to right away?
My right away thought was the Cardinals and Titans. That was okay.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Game.
So I figured that this game was going to be relatively competitive and close, but a 38-13 victory for Arizona was definitely not something I saw coming. And Kyler Murray dazzled, but the Titans offense didn't at all. I think my main takeaway is that the Titans defense is just not nearly improved at all. At least, just again, it's been 1 week. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the Titans offense didn't come to play, and their defense didn't look any better than it did last year.
My main takeaway is that Chandler Jones is absolutely disgusting.
Oh yeah? That's news?
Just he's a scary man. He's a scary, scary man coming. He ruined the tackles he went against. He literally got one benched after he got 4 sacks, and then
Taylor Lewan, who's a Pro Bowler, by the way.
Yeah, embarrassed him. Absolutely embarrassed him. And then the backup, as you'd expect, also gave up a sack after that to give him 5 sacks on the day. Absolutely crazy day for a guy coming off a season-ending injury, and good for him. He obviously won NFC Defensive Player of the Week, but the Titans on offense were surprisingly not very good.
Lewan tweeted less than 2 hours after the game, quote, "Got my ass kicked today, no way around that. I let the team and the fans down. Thank you, at Chandler Jones, for exposing me. It will only force me to get better." Yeah, if you haven't been paying attention in the last decade, Chandler Jones has been one of, if not the best pass rushing edge defender the league has seen in that time.
He's so underrated.
He is, and it's kind of wild because he wasn't overly dominant as a pass rusher in his New England days when he was winning championships. I think he's a 2-time champion. And since he left for the desert of Arizona, where the team has been middling to bad while he's been there until possibly now, he's been putting up big-time numbers. He's a really good football player. And I said when he recorded his fourth sack on Sunday, that I think I just tweeted like first ballot Hall of Famer, because I honestly believe that. I mean, this is his 10th season this year, and he already has 102 sacks. And right now, obviously leading the NFL with 5.
Yeah, nasty. Absolutely took control of this game. You know what you just reminded me of, though? Also, he's from your area. He's from Rochester, New York.
Mm-hmm. So that whole I don't know if I should say this on air, but well, obviously his family is a big family of athletes, and I think he's the youngest. I believe he's the youngest. His oldest, I want to say, is Arthur Jones, who was a defensive lineman for the Colts and Ravens, won Super Bowl. I want to say it was Super Bowl 47 with the Ravens. I'm going to double check that for you. And the middle brother is John Bones Jones, the UFC fighter.
Yeah, that's a scary family.
So yeah, but I was going to say, but yeah, they are from this area. They're definitely they're from I think they were born in Rochester, and they're from like different areas of upstate New York. Obviously Chandler went to Syracuse. I think Arthur did too. Yes, he did. He played for the Ravens from 2010 to 2013, Indy from 2014 to 2016, and Washington in 2017.
Yeah, absolutely nutty that their family is all that athletic. They have a lot of good gifts, but something that you reminded me of when you talked about Arizona middling is my favorite quote from Chandler Jones ever, it hasn't come up in a while, but it came up when it first happened. It's like, "Thank you for trading me to a good team," at Bill Belichick, and then the Cardinals proceeded to suck in his entire time there up until like maybe this point. We won't know.
So Jones was traded there in 2016. So he was a Super Bowl. He is a one-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
So 2016, the Cardinals have had no winning seasons in that time. They've gone 7-8-1, 8-8, 3-13, 5-10-1, 8-8, and are currently 1-0.
This is their best chance this year for him, I guess. Like, this probably gives him his best chance with the Cardinals that he's had.
Chandler Jones, 6 of his now 10 seasons has been over 10 sacks. Last year had just 1 in 5 games, and obviously is halfway to 10 this year. So he's doing quite well already. I have a funny story to tell you about Arthur Jones off the air, so I'll just remind me to tell you that later. But yeah, I think a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't think that's outrageous to say. When he's been healthy, he's been elite.
Oh yeah, he's been so good. So good.
Other than his rookie year where he had 6 sacks, every year that he's been healthy, or even years where he's missed some games, like his third season, 2014, he had 6 sacks in 10 games, which statistically speaking, outside of his rookie year and last season, was his worst year. So, I mean, he's really good. But besides Chandler Jones, there's obviously a lot to unpack there with this beatdown from the Cardinals, a team that was picked by many to be the 4th best team in the NFC West. Are they? Maybe they are. Maybe they're the 3rd best team. Maybe they are better. But is it possible that they are still just one of the non-favorites in the NFC West, and the Titans are just really bad? Like the whole AFC South is really bad. What do you think this says more about, or who do you think this says more about?
I'm so biased because I've always loved the Cardinals. Well, not
Kyler
always,
Murray.
Sorry. I've loved Kyler Murray since he's gotten there. But so I just think that the Cards are solid, and but also I think the Titans came out to a really slow start. I mean, you expected way more from like their main players. They went out and got themselves a Julio Jones. AJ Brown did, I guess, because he finished with a touchdown. And then Derrick Henry, like, literally sucked up until, like, the end. Like, I'm pretty sure at one point he had, like, 8 attempts for 9 yards. At some point, maybe it was 7 for 8 instead. It was close to that. Just absolutely sucked, and they need better from their, like, offensive pieces. Granted, it could be part of the offensive line absolutely getting dunked on. Because, again, Chandler Jones. But I think it's a mixture of both. I still like the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are a fringe playoff team this year. Again, I think they're going to make it. But the Titans are just not... They had a slow start. I think they'll get better, but their defense is still questionable.
I think you could definitely look and say that the offensive line wrecked that game. 6 sacks against. Tannehill had an interception. The ground game, outside of a 19-yard run by Derrick Henry, was doing nothing all day. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Vrabel basically chastised Julio Jones after the game?
Yeah, because he got a stupid penalty. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he got a stupid penalty, and he said you can't do that.
Well, and it was the most impactful thing he did all day, so obviously
Literally.
Not good. But the Cardinals off and running, the Titans in some trouble. What else from the early game stuck out to you? I know what stuck out to me.
What stuck out to you? I'm sorry, I just read what you wrote for the Vikings at Bengals.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, it was the Texans coming out and throttling the Jacksonville Jaguars. If the playoffs started today, which after 1 week, of course, the Texans would be the top seed in the AFC. The Texans, led by Tyrod Taylor, or Tyrod Taylor, I don't remember how you say his name. Was it unfair of us to look back at Tyrod Taylor and think that maybe, even though he hasn't played a bunch the last few seasons, that he is still close to that guy he was in Buffalo when he was leading them to the playoffs?
I'm happy he's getting that chance. Yeah, I think that, like, he was going to be the starter for the Chargers for who knows how long, and then the doctor said, bro, let me just poke you in the lung real quick, and really screwed him up. Like, that sucks. Like, I'm glad that he's making a comeback and gets a start for a team. I'm sure Davis Mills is going to replace him because Tyrod Taylor just never stops getting replaced, whether it be Baker Mayfield or the Bills drafting Josh Allen, or it keeps coming with the doctors in LA knocking him out and forcing Herbert into a starting role, and when he was healthy, he was obviously not getting that back. So I'm glad that he's getting a chance. He looked pretty solid in that game. I thought their team as a whole looked good. I think this game, though, reflects more on how bad Jacksonville actually is with their coaching and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was scared of them being a bad team, but for them to lose that bad to the Texans, which I'm not, even though I like Tyrod Taylor, like, that team is just not, it's not a very good team top to bottom. The Jaguars
we legitimately saw I think 3 games that we said they have a chance to win this year, and this was one of them.
Yeah, both of them. I think I had them winning both games against Jacksonville because I just don't believe in Jacksonville that much.
Yeah, so as far as the Texans go, they thoroughly destroyed Jacksonville in every way possible. They were the score does not reflect just how much the Texans were outplaying them. Trevor Lawrence pretty shaky in his first NFL game. Did have some nice throws, I thought, though, but overall, like you said, there's a lot wrong with this team, and I don't think that Urban Meyer is going to be the one that turns it around. I just hope that he's a one and done for the sake of Jacksonville, so that they don't waste his prime, or not even his prime, but his rookie contract years.
Yeah, it's just really, really stupid to, like, you look at who's carrying the ball. You have an undrafted free agent rookie that was so good last year, and instead you run Carlos Hyde 9 times for 44 yards, and that's a good average. It's just below 5, but you have James Robinson, who's arguably better and more consistent. I mean, he ran 5 for 25 in that game, and his longest was 7. He was getting you those 5 yards every time. Carlos Hyde got one long of 13, and that kind of made up a third of his yards. So I don't know, just everything about that team is wrong. Everything, the way the team is run, most of the players are bad. Just not going to be a very good team this year. It's going to be tough for them to pull out a victory.
That 13-yard run came on their first touchdown drive of the game. So afterwards, it was a pretty quiet day for all of them. All right. Do you think Urban Meyer lasts the season?
It's tough to say. I feel like yes. I feel like they can't just fire him mid-season because that would look even stupider than hiring him. I think. I don't know what's worse, hiring him in the first place or saying yeah we're that stupid and we're admitting halfway through the season that we were that stupid. I think he lasts 1 year. It's like what's it gonna do to Jacksonville? They're gonna go win 2 more games instead of the 5 instead of 3. Like it's not gonna be a big deal.
May I put forth the point that the owner doesn't care about firing the guy because he doesn't care how either the finances of it and he doesn't care about the optics because Shad Khan is worth over like $8.5 billion. So I don't think he cares, to be honest with you.
I don't think he cares. You're right. That's why Jacksonville has been where it's at.
What it is.
Why can we discuss why Jacksonville even has a team? Why does Jacksonville have a team?
Well, because they have to host the Saints when there are bad hurricanes.
That's true. That is true. So the Saints could have a stadium at all times. Fair point.
Look,
Jacksonville should relocate.
I love my buddy Josh. He's been on this show several times talking whenever the Steelers and Jaguars have played. I was surprised to know that he was a Jaguars fan, and I was even more surprised just how big of a fan he was of that team, because it just seems like one of those things where every now and then they'll get a big run like they did when they in the late 90s and then like 2007 with David Garrard and then 2017. It's just a team that if you point to one team and you're like, that team should be relocated, you're going to look at either the Chargers or the Jaguars.
Yeah. It's just like, does Jacksonville even have any other team in a major sport? Like even like going to lacrosse and soccer. Like, do they have a minor team there? I don't know.
I am on their Wikipedia page trying to find what they got right now.
Maybe like an ECHL team or something? I don't know.
I'm seeing a lot of college teams. A lot of these I'm not even sure are still in existence. They might be defunct teams. The Jacksonville Sharks, I do not know what that is. The Giants, don't know what that is. The Jumbo Shrimp, which is an oxymoron. The Jacksonville Armada. Oh, that's FC, so that's a... Man, only on Yelp.com could the Jaguars be listed as the 6th best professional team in Jacksonville. Oh, and number 7 is the Teal Street Hooligans, which has a picture of a trash can.
Yo, that's lit.
Okay. I think
they do have an indoor football league. They have an ECHL team.
The
and
Iceman.
they do have that Jumbo Shrimp, and that's a AAA baseball team. So I guess they got a few things. Nothing amazing though. But
I could be wrong, but I think their football team is the smallest. I think it's the smallest seating capacity for any Division I team. At 5,000.
It only holds 67,000, so I believe it.
Sorry, what holds 67,000?
TIAA Bank Field.
Oh, I'm talking about the college.
Oh,
Jacksonville University. They have the smallest of any. They have the smallest of any Division I stadium at 5,000.
They are Division One.
FCS.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Yes, indeed.
The more you know.
Oh, wait a minute. It's a defunct program.
Ah.
All right.
Rest
Well,
in peace.
I think we've gone far enough here. Okay, let's go to the 2 games that pissed me off more than any other, and number 1 has to be the Eagles dismantling the Atlanta Falcons 32-6. And I have to say, I'm not crazy surprised that Jalen Hurts played well, and frankly, I'm not surprised the Falcons played like dirt, which I should have known better about. I just figured they would have at least put up a fight or would have blown the game in spectacular fashion like they love to do. But no, it was just unbelievably horrific, and I kind of had a come to Jesus moment, kind of like you did a couple years ago, where you're like, I will never pick the Falcons as long as they have their core in place. I'll never do anything. I looked all over 5 of my fantasy teams. I had one player, Mike Davis, and I traded him this morning. I will not root for any player on that team until, I don't know, something like Matt Ryan has to go. Anyone that's from that team over recent years, until those players are gone, until the coaches are gone, until that franchise is moved or burned to the ground, I will not support them in any way at all, because I've been hurt too many times.
I respect it. That was me with the Jets last year. Yeah, that Falcons team is ugly. What did you trade Mike Davis for? I gotta know.
Latavius Murray.
I respect it. Damn, dude. That's it?
Yep. Dude, Latavius Murray's going to be the lead back there before long.
That's fair. No, that's totally fair. I respect it, though. That's hilarious. The Eagles give me massive Cardinals vibes. Like, both birds.
From last year, you mean? Or just, like, at the same time?
Just in general. Like, everything. Other than not having a DeAndre Hopkins. Like, they kind of, like, have very similar teams, and it's like Jalen Hurts is the same style quarterback as Kyler Murray, also underrated in that sense, because people didn't think he could throw. And I mean, this is one game against a really, really, really bad defense, like a not good at all defense. So he can very well not be able to throw. We might have a more Lamar Jackson rather than Kyler Murray here, but I just get the same vibes, like, from how they are, how people view the team and stuff. Like, because I feel like everyone ignores their talent. Like, the Eagles have Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz playing on the same team, and that's solid. Devontae Smith, they have a solid.
This was a team
line
that people thought were going to win, like, just 4 games this year.
Yeah, and I was not on that train at all. I just always really liked their team. I like the guys they have. I was a big fan of Singleton last year. Darius Slay is solid. They have Steven Nelson now. They have another Pittsburgh Steeler that I really love in Javon Hargrave. I just like I like
by the
their
way, was outside of Cam Hayward, might have been the best defensive lineman in the league last week.
Yeah, that's nasty. Sometimes I like picture what it would be like if we had Javon Hargrave. Still, I love Tyson Alualu. I think he's done a fantastic job at a very good price. But like having Javon Hargrave with this defense would be so crazy. But regardless, back to the Eagles as a whole. Like, I think they're more. I always thought they were more talented than people were making them out to be this offseason. Like, I think people forgot that they didn't have Brandon Brooks last year, and their offensive line was completely moving around, and I don't know. They also finally drafted a solid wide receiver in Devontae Smith, and I don't know. I don't really know why they were looked at so poorly. I might sound really stupid like 5 weeks from now when they're 1-5.
I think a lot of people have questions about Jalen Hurts.
I'm pretty sure it all stemmed from Jalen Hurts. Yeah. The quarterback's the most important position, and if you're not sure about the quarterback, you're going to say the team is pretty bad. I don't know, but even then, I still think like a team that has enough talent should still be able to win a few games. But regardless.
What does this game say more about? Does it say more about the Eagles or the Falcons?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Because I went from thinking the Falcons were like a 4-win team to now I think they might be a 2-win team.
I think it tells us more about the Falcons, honestly. I think people were too high on them, and I think that it should be telling that the Falcons are not going to win many games this year. 5, maybe.
Let's go to another surprise result, and that is the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals were able to defeat the Minnesota Vikings in overtime on Sunday. Despite good numbers from Kirk Cousins in the end, it was all about the Joe Burrow return and the emergence of Jamar Chase after a difficult preseason, to say the least, finishing with 5 receptions for 101 yards and 1 touchdown, including a 50-yard reception. The Bengals, again, this is going to be a theme for this week's games, is what does this say more about? Does it say more about the team that lost or the team that won? I think this speaks a little bit more to Cincinnati being certainly more of a threat than they were last year, and maybe not a great team, but a team that should be, even if they're not good record-wise, will be competitive throughout the year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think Cincinnati, this might have said, hey, Cincinnati might be a little bit better than everyone thought. I really, really didn't think Joe Mixon was going to bounce back at all. And again, it's one game. We're basing everything off one game. But I just thought Joe Mixon was like damaged goods. I really didn't think that he had much left in the tank to do anything. But regardless, I hate Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is the reason I lost more than anything. I guess Kirk Cousins sucks too. But in overtime,
do you still feel the same way about him that you did like 2 years ago?
No, I feel like he's properly rated now. Like, so
I agree.
It's like enough people finally decided, hey, Kirk Cousins isn't very good. So, like, I don't have to call Kirk Cousins ridiculously overrated anymore because he's, like, properly rated. It's like the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Like, I could stop calling Lamar Jackson overrated because you have half the people that go on Twitter saying he can't throw, which is fairly true. And that's how I felt. I'm like, this guy doesn't do anything as a quarterback. And that's kind of where we're at with Kirk Cousins. It's like everyone kind of acknowledges, like, he's average at best. Like, he's pretty average. He could do stuff sometimes, but he's not very good. He wasn't even... Justin Jefferson was a better quarterback on the day by QBR, so...
Is it possible to win a Super Bowl with a Kirk Cousins quarterback other than a one-off Joe Flacco, Peyton Manning in 2015 type of performance?
I sure hope so, because that's what the Steelers had to bank on this year.
That's true, but I guess I'm wondering if, in terms of quarterback play, where is that line that you draw where you say, okay, our quarterback needs to be better than this guy for us to have a legit chance?
In terms of guys...
He's below that, right?
I do think...
But if he is, he's not... I don't think he's crazy far below it, though.
I was going to say that. I think he's not far below it. I'm pretty sure he's, like, really close to what you need to be able to win a Super Bowl. If on your team, if you have, like, the Steelers defense, and then you have, like,
Dalvin
a bunch of other...
Cook.
Yeah. Like, your team could probably win the Super Bowl, I'd believe.
And that's okay, because only 8 teams are going to have the top 8 quarterbacks, too. And sometimes you have to put together great teams to win championships. Duh. So I don't think that's that outrageous.
That's very controversial. Please
Yeah.
take that back and apologize.
Well, you know what? The Chiefs 2 years ago obviously did not have a great team. The year before they went to the Super Bowl, so 2018 this would have been, they had like the 28th ranked defense. So I mean, you don't need it. But obviously, if you have a great team around you, like the Browns, you could probably get away with having what I think is a average to above average quarterback in Baker Mayfield. And we can
Baker Mayfield may be the cutoff. He might be the
he
guy.
definitely could be. Well, and I predicted the Browns would win the Super Bowl this year. So what does that say about what I think about him?
He is like probably the guy that you cut it off at and say anyone below him is probably not gonna make. The
Not
Super
going to be good
Bowl.
enough to cut it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, well. Back to this game then. I'm not crazy surprised that Cincinnati won. I was surprised that they were able to win in kind of a guns a-blazing sort of performance. And Joe Burrow, even though he didn't light up the stat sheet, I thought was very efficient and did get sacked 5 times for his efforts.
Yeah, I think that Joe Burrow bounced back very well. Again, like you said, he stood through those sacks, did really well regardless, had a really good completion percentage. Not the most yards, but he didn't make a mistake, I felt like. I thought he was overall really, really good. And I think that's good for their team, that he has bounced back and shown that he could bounce back. But yeah, I think Cincinnati might have been underrated in my head coming into this year.
Wanted to jump to the 49ers and Lions, which we touched on briefly. The Niners were up at one point 41-17 in this game and had thoroughly controlled it, but the Lions were able to make this a game and almost were an onside recovery away from having a chance to drive one final time to tie the game and put it into overtime. Raheem Mostert done for the year for the 49ers, who, again, I think we're getting a little too much love, and for all the great things that Kyle Shanahan has done, without Jimmy Garoppolo, he has a 7-27 record. And Garoppolo was good again, but I still don't think that this is a team that's that great, and I think that it's a team that's overrated.
I don't know how to feel about San Fran. Like, I'm really sad that they lost Jason Verrey for the year. Jason Verrey I felt like had finally got footing down as a cornerback again, since like he had one good season with the Chargers that was really promising, then like tore his ACL like 3 times in a row, made an unlikely comeback.
Played well last year.
Yeah, played well last year. Finally had a healthy year, and then just tore his ACL again. Like I feel for that guy, and I think that is actually a fairly big loss. But regardless of that, the San Francisco's offense is just so super powered. I don't know how to feel about them. Like, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. They have so much talent everywhere in terms of running backs. Like, they're all, like, guys you wouldn't... If, like, they were on your team, you probably wouldn't even think about it. Like, the Raheem Mosterts, the Hasties, the Elijah Mitchells of the world. But they always make them work. Their rushing attack is, like, something that I respect. It's probably Shanahan's greatest accomplishment, is being able to rush no matter who you have. Like, I feel like that's like the greatest thing about San Francisco as of late, is that they're going to rush on you, and it doesn't matter with who, and they don't care. They're going to make a committee of whoever they have, and they might be off the street sometimes, and they're still going to work. Just the combinations they had at running back between like Breida, Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Hasty, Mostert, Mostert twice, Kinnan, Tevin Coleman,
and we haven't even seen Trey Sermon yet.
Yeah, and we haven't seen, like, I respect that. And they have some really solid wide receivers. Ayuk was not featured at all in this game. Talks are that he didn't take preseason seriously or something. Like, I don't know. I heard a bunch of weird things about that. I don't know if I believe that. But when he's also injured. When Ayuk comes back, they have a really solid receiver set too, with Samuel, him, and then Kittle. And then they have one of the best fullbacks in the league in Kyle Juszczyk, not to be forgotten.
And the league's best tight end in George Kittle.
Literally. So the 49ers are weird for me, is the point I was making.
So do you feel better? You feel more like positive about them than I do then?
I think so. I think that they're an all right team. I wish their defense again didn't lose Jason Verrey, but I'm a big fan of Diamador Lenore. I don't know if that puts him... I honestly don't know if that puts him in a starting role. I was looking at the box score, and he got 3 tackles, and that makes me think that he did get to start at some point in this game. Or, I'm sorry, not start, obviously, just play. But I'm a big fan of his, but not sure. I'm not sure how I feel. Because I feel like overall their weapons are good. Their defense was really good. Is really good. Don't know. And I just don't like their quarterback. They're weird.
Any thoughts on the Lions here?
No, I don't waste my time like that.
Seahawks and Colts, a game that went about as I expected it would. A bit of a rocky game for Carson Wentz, who I didn't think was awful. His final numbers were not too bad, but again, just not the overall impact that I think the Colts were looking for. And Russell Wilson started the season in typical Russell Wilson form, which is to say he looked like the best player on the field.
Yeah, I need to remember every year that Seattle always surprised me. This game did go as I expected too. This is like maybe the only game that went as I expected. But in terms of score, but every year I'm like, man, the Seahawks are just going to commit to running all year. They kept like 6 running backs and only 5 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers, something crazy like that. And then Russell Wilson decided to ball out. Like, he threw 4 touchdowns, only 254 yards, but that was enough. But
no, to be fair, there was only 23 passes, so they did run the ball a lot more. Well, not a lot more. Only 27 rushes in total, so actually I take that back.
Yeah, it's not crazy. And Freddie Swain, my man's got a carry for 5 yards. I love that man. But I was impressed with Seattle's defense in this game. I thought
shutting down that ground game there.
That was a very good job. If they can't be good in pass support, they could be if they want to make their identity run support, that might be good enough. I know it's a passing league, but if they're really good at it, props to them. I think that was the biggest thing I was underrating coming into this game. I never underrated their offense, really. It's really just that defense, but they played together so well.
biggest surprise of this game, I think, is the fact that Jonathan Taylor had 6 receptions and led the team in receiving and rushing, too.
Yeah, that's tough. I think they missed T.Y. Hilton.
Maybe it shouldn't surprise me, though, because of the way Carson Wentz likes to divvy up his targets. And Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox didn't have, a ton of targets between them, because typically Carson Wentz likes the tight ends, but the running backs leading the way in targets didn't surprise me.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, though. Your top 2 receivers in terms of catches and yards
2 running backs
are running backs. Bizarre. That's
Do you
why
have
the
any
Colts
different
paid a
feelings? Go ahead.
So I said that's why the Colts paid a backup running back so they could be their best wide receiver instead of paying a wide receiver. It's big brain. It's big brain
Galaxy
energy right
brained
there.
it.
Literally.
Do you have any different thoughts about the Colts? Do you think that they might be a little bit better than that? What did you have them at, 9 wins? I think that's where I had them.
I don't actually remember.
Need more data points.
Yeah.
I need to see more.
I don't feel any better about the Colts. I'd still hate myself if I was a fan of that team. I'd rather be a Jaguars fan.
The fans that are hating life right now have to be fans of the Washington football team, losing at home to the Los Angeles Chargers, and they lose their quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick from roughly 6 to 8 weeks with a pretty serious hip injury. Taylor Heineke plays pretty well off the bench, but it's not enough. Justin Herbert opens his sophomore season with a not statistically dominant game, but does just enough on top of the fact that you add in some drops from some receivers in this game. And they sneak out with a close victory against a tough defense.
Yeah, big sad about that. I really thought Washington was going to make it all the way this year, and they still have a chance. It's just much tougher. I put so much betting into this. I have $20 on how Washington does. I have draft picks in one of my NFL leagues on how Washington does. So that was unfortunate to see. I still think their defense can possibly carry them to a late seed for the playoffs, because that's really the main reason why I thought they were going to be good anyway, was their defense. Ryan Fitzpatrick was just a bonus. I thought that he was a better quarterback than they've had. Not amazing still, but, I still have hopes for them to possibly get on as a 6 or 7 seed, but it's going to be tough. If the Cowboys and Eagles stay as good as they looked in week 1, both of them, it's going to be tough sledding to win this division without Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. This is the Cowboys' division to lose. And if the Eagles are better than what the general public has thought, Washington could easily be the 3rd best team in this division. I know Taylor Heineke has played well in limited action, but he's played just so few snaps, there's just not enough data on what to expect from him. I think expecting him to play as well as he did on Sunday and in that playoff game last year is just unrealistic. Because Kyle Allen played really well for like 6 games a couple years ago, and then he became Kyle Allen.
Yeah, then he was just Kyle Allen. The one thing you could say about Heineke is he's efficient, though. He was 11 for 15 in that game, just over 10 yards per toss. And he kept them in it. There was a chance for Washington to still win that. I mean, they only lost by 4 points. So there is hope for this team come late December.
Lastly, for the 1 o'clock games, we have Jets and Panthers, and I have pretty much nothing to say about that, other than the old Jets beat the new Jets.
Yeah, no, the Jets still look like the Jets. Their offensive line somehow looks worse than it did last year, and without Mekhi Becton,
yes,
or Mekhi, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding from here. That was like their best lineman, and apparently they're moving George Fant to left tackle, and he literally today said, like, this is a huge challenge. Like, he literally talked about it. It's like a pitcher throwing with their non-dominant hand. So that is not the confidence that I want.
Booster that you want, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. So they're
Elijah Moore disappointing too. 1 catch for -3 yards.
He was so hyped up too. It's so funny when you like hear a player so hyped up, like, oh, he's the next Antonio Brown. Like that's usually like called a lot, and that's what I heard a lot for Elijah Moore. Game 1, not so great, not so hot, but he's got plenty of time. He's a rookie, but it is funny seeing that though after people hype him up so heavy.
Let's move into the 4 o'clock games. Let's start with the least remarkable one of the 4. The Broncos just about double up the Giants +1 after that, 27-13. Daniel Jones continues to turn the football over. The Broncos get some explosive plays, and Teddy Bridgewater does Teddy Bridgewater things. Pretty unremarkable game. Definitely the least exciting of the 4 later games on Sunday.
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed with it. I still liked what Teddy Bridgewater did, though. I like him. I think that he is what the team needed just to get over that playoff push. I really do think Denver's going to be making a push for the playoffs, too, in December. A lot of teams competing this year. I feel like a lot of teams have a chance to make the playoffs.
They have a lot of legitimate weapons. There might not be a single top guy, and they did lose Jerry Jeudy to an MCL sprain, ACL sprain, but it's not season-ending. They have a bunch of different weapons, and Albert O emerged as a pretty solid number 2 tight end behind Noah Fant there. So, and they've got the 2 running backs, so they did enough against a pretty solid Giants defense. And on the other side, the Giants could just get nothing going on offense, as has been the case for a long time now. And Daniel Jones was pedestrian. He didn't throw an interception, but I think he fumbled at least twice, or was it just he fumbled once?
He fumbled once and lost it. Classic, but yeah, it's about right.
All right. The Dolphins squeaked out a 17-16 victory over the Patriots, and Mac Jones had a pretty impressive game. Tua was pretty quiet, had a pretty horrific interception that didn't end up biting them in the backside. Pretty competitive, but overall, the Patriots were probably the better team overall, but they had a pretty killer fumble from Damian Harris themselves, and therefore were not able to pull out a win that they probably earned.
This team has got to commit to Myles Gaskin being their number 1 running back. Like that, I don't know what is wrong with them and why they're not. Gaskin is a full player, does everything right, improved in pass blocking, and Tua needs a run game that helps. Look, they rushed Malcolm Brown and Salvin Ahmed 8 times combined in this game, which almost matches Gaskin. Gaskin was their number 1 in the committee, but those 8 rushes went for 20 yards. Like, they were unimpressive. Malcolm Brown was 5 for 16, 3 for 4, and then you have Myles Gaskin, who is 9 for 49, over 5 yards per tote. I think they would be so much better if they just... He's from the Belichick line. It's literally what it is. He's forcing it because he's from the Belichick line, where they always had running backs do separate jobs, but it's just so stupid. Myles Gaskin led the team in catches, and he wasn't even on the field for all the plays. Like, you gotta... I hate the Dolphins so much. There's a lot of teams I don't like what they do with a lot of their players. Like, Myles Gaskin is a certified running back 1 and should be an every down running back. It might be a hot take, but no one could convince me otherwise.
Malcolm Brown is just the perfect handcuffed running back because he's never going to be as good as the starter no matter where he is. In the last 4 years, he's averaged, I think, how many receptions has he had? He's averaging about 85 to 90 touches per season. So, like, he is the perfect handcuff where, like, he is completely unremarkable but is just there.
Yep, it's classic. The Dolphins want to ruin my love for Myles Gaskin, and it hurts me.
I'll trade you Malcolm Brown. I'm just kidding, but we won't get into that. Do you want to go with maybe the other biggest surprise from the weekend, or probably the best game from the weekend? One of the best games from the weekend.
Let's do the surprise because I have to eat some words.
All right, so Packers Saints. Now first of all, this game played in Jacksonville. I had higher feelings on the Saints than you did. And again, I'm going to ask you, does this say this 38-3 win by the Saints over the Packers? Does it say more about the Saints or the Packers?
Saints, by far. I think Green Bay is going to bounce back. I have no doubt that Green Bay is going to be fine from here. I feel like it might be the opposite for you because you were already high on the Saints since I was so low on the Saints. This kind of didn't reverse it all the way, but like I have to view them as a much better team now based on not because I wasn't just not in love with their offense. I was a little bit worried about their pass catchers and stuff, which they found pass catchers that I hadn't even heard of in years. Like my man's what's his
Ty
face?
Montgomery.
Ty Montgomery is one.
I mean, he was quiet. That's Chris Hogan was there.
I was thinking about Chris Hogan catching a touchdown. I'm like, the lacrosse player Chris Hogan? No way. But for real, on the defense, I was super underrated on the defense. Apparently, that's where most of my problems came from. Like I was like, well, they're unremarkable on defense. Who am I supposed to trust there for them to be a good team? And they did extremely well in this game. So, I think I was low on them for almost no reason. They did lose Marcus Davenport for some time, and they're losing their
Marshawn Lattimore was hurt too, right?
Oh, was he? I didn't even know that.
I thought I saw that.
He graded really well with PFF, but regardless, yeah, I think the Saints defense is what impressed me the most.
Marshawn Lattimore to have surgery Tuesday to fix chipped bone and thumb.
That's a toughie. I'm assuming he's going to be out time, right?
I did not see. I already closed it. But I don't think this says a bunch about either team. The Packers have this propensity to get blown the frick out with Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason. I mean, it happened with Tampa Bay last year in the regular season. He just looked like there was his second interception where he just launched it down the field. Looked like he didn't even care, whereas it was just an arm punt. Just one of those games where you just tear up the tape. Jameis Winston will get a lot of praise, and he played well. But I think it was just a total team effort. I don't think it says a lot about him himself, other than he did what he had to do. I mean, he had less than 150 passing yards. It's not like he was... I mean, you can't take away the 5 touchdowns because they're 5 touchdowns, but I thought he did. I thought he was perfectly fine, and I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, it's the first time in history that's happened. A quarterback has thrown for 5 touchdowns and less than 150 yards. Kind of bizarre. I would have felt like in the early stages of the AFL and the NFL that would have happened once with how little they threw, and if they threw it was short. But kind of crazy that's the first. I would have never guessed it would be Jameis Winston.
All right, and then the highlight game of the 4 o'clock hour would be the Chiefs' comeback win, 33-29 over the Browns. Against any other team, I think if this happens to the Browns, they're just getting dunked on all week. But I think not many people are batting an eye when it's the Chiefs doing it.
Yeah, it's unsurprising. There is no lead that is safe from Kansas City. Kansas City just can come back from anything. It does not matter. They literally have just so many weapons. Well, I wouldn't even say they have so many weapons. The weapons they do have are so absurdly good that there's just no deficit big enough. Like, you could probably be up 28-3 on them, and they're going to make that comeback too. But overall, it is really scary, though. I will say, if they lose Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill,
that changes a lot.
It changes a lot. I had to really correct my statement from about a minute ago that they have a lot of weapons. They do not. They absolutely don't. The quality of weapons that they do have is just insane. When you have the Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill combo, it's disgusting. Just a disgusting combo. But after that, it's not much. I don't think highly of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I've been waiting for Mecole Hardman to break out for what feels
Never
like 6
has.
years now. But even though he's only been in the league for I think 3 or 2.
This is
and
year
everyone
3.
keep. It is year 3, dude. It just feels like forever. I feel like he's a speedster. He's built just like Tyreek Hill. He's gonna break out, and I'm like, when? just always when. But yeah, and their defense is kind of unremarkable too. They did play without the Honey Badger, but
that has to be canceled out by the fact they played without Frank Clark, which is an upgrade.
That is an upgrade. That is a huge upgrade. But yeah, and I mean they still have Chris Jones, who's lit. I love Chris Jones.
And they upgraded their offensive line. I really get 2017, 2018 Steelers vibes from this offense. Obviously with a different level of quarterbacking, to be sure. But Antonio Brown, Lev Bell, you saw what happened when one of those guys got injured.
Yeah, it was tough. It completely derailed the team.
As far as the Browns go, I still think they have a really good team. And with the issues going on with the Ravens, I think they probably have the best chance to win the division, even though they were not able to close the deal in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the hardest game you're going to get. Ravens will probably get wiped by Kansas City this week.
Upcoming week, yeah.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if Kansas City just blows them out because of their injuries. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's a close game, but I don't think it's not bad to lose to Kansas City. And I mean, you could at least say you're up on them for a good amount of time. It was like, what, 22-10 at halftime? Because Browns went for 2 immediately. I think it was something like that.
Yes, and they got it.
Yeah. Yep, 22-10 at halftime. And that just wasn't enough. That wasn't enough points.
All right, let's move to Sunday night. The Rams and their new look offense blow out the Bears 34-14. Matthew Stafford, a near perfect day. And for the Bears, not a whole lot going on offense, though I will say David Montgomery has quietly emerged from a quiet and unspectacular back to maybe potentially this year could be one of the top 5 in the league.
I actually, despite Chicago only putting up 14, I don't know if it tells more about the Rams' defense or Chicago's offense. I thought the offense did okay. Like, I was expecting this offense to be absolutely terrible, the offensive line to be bad, and they suffered like 3 injuries on offensive line where they were already weak at in game. Like, Jason Peters had to walk off, then a prospect I looked at and Larry Borum came on, and then Borum got hurt, and it was just like, I was impressed with them. I actually liked what they were doing for the most part. They have hope. They have hope when Fields comes in, I think. But right now, Dalton's...
I got to dispute that just because Andy Dalton was averaging two seconds to pass. He was Ben Roethlisberger on Sunday night.
That is true.
Justin Fields is closer to 4 seconds per pass.
This is true. Okay.
Okay,
Fair.
well, and that brings up another question. What do you do if you're Matt Nagy? Are you trotting out Dalton again, or are you trying Fields because the threat of Aaron Donald has passed? Now, you still face several tough defenses throughout the year, but, I mean, I assume you're going to play him eventually. You got the Browns in 2 weeks. You've got the Buccaneers later down the road. You have Pittsburgh. Baltimore's not quite as threatening now. You have Chandler Jones down the road here. So, I mean, he's gonna take his lumps, but is Aaron Donald? I guess the way I saw it is Aaron Donald is the one that you don't want him to have to face.
Yeah, that's super fair. I think that you could deploy Fields whenever you want from here, but again, I actually thought the offense was good enough where Dalton doesn't. I know he didn't throw a touchdown and he got a pick, and Fields ironically got the only touchdown of the day for the quarterbacks, but I think Dalton's going to probably stick for a little bit longer because I thought they did a good job against the Rams' defense with how fast they were throwing and all that.
You buying into the Rams yet?
No, because this is about what I expected. This score, I know I said Seahawks Colts was like the only one I expected. This was about what I expected for this game. I think the Rams are a solid team.
I would agree with you as well. All right. And then finally, the wild Monday Night Football game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. Did you watch this game at all?
Yes, I did. I was impressed with the Raiders' pass rush or really disappointed in the Ravens' offensive line. Both.
Namely, Ronnie Stanley and Alejandro Villanueva.
My poor man's. He's a double agent. It's great.
Well, or they could have just been like, hey, let's not put you at right tackle.
They could have. They could have put him in his more natural position.
Although I'm sure you wouldn't want to move Ronnie Stanley either, but it looks bad right now.
They literally didn't want to move Ronnie Stanley. I mean, that's why Orlando Brown is no longer a Baltimore Raven. Like they literally said, Orlando Brown, fuck right off. like we're keeping Ronnie Stanley there, and Orlando Brown did not like that. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to do it for Big Al.
The Ravens were still able to run the ball with pretty good efficiency, maybe not as well as they would have normally, but it was just a bit more by committee this time between Jackson, Murray, Tyson Williams, even Marquise Brown and Trenton Cannon had a handful of carries too.
And then Cannon got cut the next day.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's funny how the NFL works. But he's a 49er now. He gets to be the next one in that great rotation that somehow gets like 20 yards on 2 carries. And
he went from the best place for a running back to be to the second best place for a running back to be.
Yeah, all is well for him. I wouldn't be too mad about it.
What about Lamar Jackson in this game too?
I feel like the offensive line sucked, but I mean, man's fumbled twice, or he fumbled 3 times. Sorry,
3 times, lost 2.
Yeah, lost 2. So I mean, he's to blame for this too. You know what play like hurts me though?
The overtime one or the fourth quarter one?
Before both of those, the Marlon Humphrey missed interception.
Okay, so I didn't see this. What happened?
It's like hard to explain without.
I'll look it up then.
See, well, I could just. It's not like it's hard to like picture. I guess like he's on covering Darren Waller, doing a great job, and the way it rolls, like he tackles Waller, Waller doesn't get the catch, and the ball somehow ends up in Humphrey's hands, and Humphrey celebrates and drops the ball.
I'm watching it that's really weird.
He said he had no idea the ball was there, which I believe it. Like Marlon Humphrey is probably my favorite like Raven at the moment. I think he's a really good player. But that hurts. That more than anything, that hurts. Not getting that interception right there when it was in his hands. That's like a gimme one. It's like he didn't even have to work for it. It was right there. It hurts. I feel like cringed about it. But yeah, I don't know. I really felt like they lost the turnover battle because of Jackson and that play right there. Like, it's just tough when your team fumbles 4 times and loses 2 and only gets 1 interception. You know, it's just.
Is this
tough.
the 50th percentile Lamar Jackson, or is this closer to the bottom for him?
What do you mean by 50th percentile?
In terms of performance, like, is this the average Lamar Jackson performance, or is this a below average in your opinion, based on your thoughts of him over his career?
This is exactly what I expect from Lamar Jackson. Now,
that's what you expect, yeah.
2 years ago, this would have been a great game. He rushed for 86 yards, and that's what everyone would have focused on. Well, he carried the ball 12 times for 86 yards. It would have said, that's amazing. And then he threw a touchdown. He was efficient. He was 19 for 30. This is a standard Lamar Jackson game that 2 years ago people would have eaten up. We're just over it.
Well, in comparison now, it's like an average game.
Yeah. Yep.
And then on the other side, Derek Carr had a great game. The Raiders, a lot produced from their passing game. That'll be tough for the Steelers to see next week.
Yeah, I really thought that their pass rush was going to be easier than the Bills, which it might be with the injuries they suffered, but I'm not banking on it because it actually looked really solid. It's going to depend on who plays. Like, all their guys are banged up. Like, their best guys, like Carl Nassib was banged up.
Well, but who are their best pass rushers? Carl Nassib and Max Crosby?
Max Crosby, yeah. Okay. He absolutely destroyed Big Al in that game. Max Crosby is solid.
I am a little concerned about Crosby because he's a solid player.
Yeah, he's going to go against Chuck, too.
Yeah, core 4 on the right side, it makes me a bit nervous. Carl Nassib doesn't really concern me all that much just because he's been in the league for a long time. He's not a guy that's going to consistently win.
Yeah.
Crosby, I think it's a better pass rush than the year before because I think Crosby is better, but I think he's the only one you still have to worry about.
Yeah, Yannick graded positively too, but he might not be there.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, he looked pretty good. I'd say better than he normally does last week.
Yeah.
All right,
they got some solid guys.
Lastly, did you watch any of the Manning broadcasts? What'd you think about that? If you saw any?
No, I watched a stream, not on ESPN2.
All right. Well, it was interesting. There was a fire alarm that went off in Eli's. Wherever Eli was, which was kind of odd. I don't know if it's something I'd watch again, or I don't know. I'm torn because I don't like the traditional broadcast on ESPN that much. Although I do like Steve Levy, but like if this came around a couple years ago, I'd be watching it all the time instead of Booger and Jason Witten.
Everything's better than Booger.
All right. Well, now that we've gotten through the slate of games, do you want to cover NFL news and then we'll get into what happened in Buffalo?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about some NFL news. So there's really just a bunch of injuries reported. We covered a good amount of them. We just talked about the Raiders, and they lost Denzel Good for the season, who is their offensive guard starting. They lost Gerald McCoy to a knee injury. We talked about Mostert already. He's gone for the year. We talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to be back in 6 to 8 weeks, likely week 9 after the IR rules, where he could come back 8 weeks later. The Jets suffered a lot. They placed 4 on IR on Monday, including Becton, Brandon Mann, their punter, Blake Cashman, and LaMarcus Joyner. They had a tough go with things. They had more injuries in that game, but so unfortunate for them. But yeah, that's really all the news. We kind of went over everything else because we did all the games.
So
unless there's anything you want to add.
Nothing comes to mind unless, I'll do a quick Twitter check right now, see if there's anything else going on. Did you want to, in the meantime, you want to talk about what's going on? Oh, did you mention DeMarcus Lawrence?
I did not. What happened to DeMarcus Lawrence?
Out for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken foot for the Cowboys.
Really? I didn't even know he got hurt. When did that even happen?
Must have happened last week.
It suffered broken foot in practice. Happened today.
Oh, wow.
Damn, that sucks. Yeah, that really, because I literally, as soon as you said that, I was like, I have not heard anything about DeMarcus Lawrence at all. It happened apparently 2 hours ago.
Here's something. Dante Moncrief just tweeted @verified. Dang, looks like he's no longer verified. They dropped his verified label. Get it?
Damn, dude. Even the Twitter people don't like Dante Moncrief. Sheesh.
Trying to see if
not
there's
popular
anything
enough.
else here. Yeah. All right. Want to touch on the injuries coming out of Sunday's game and the first practice report today on Wednesday?
Yeah, sure. So there was some weird stuff to start the game. We were told that Buddy Johnson was going to be inactive, and then it turns out that it was Robert Spillane. It got all messed up and something, and it turns out that Robert Spillane hurt his shin in warm-ups and was then made inactive for the game after that. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, so he might be all right. We'll have to see going forward. It's only Wednesday as we're recording this. Carlos Davis hurt his knee at some point. No idea when. Didn't see it. But he has started the practice week limited because of it. He was limited on Wednesday. Then Deontay Johnson hurt his knee and was out for a little while. It looked like it might be a bad one, but he was able to re-enter the game and nothing came of it. He was not on the injury report to start this week. So all good there.
All right. Very good. The Raiders didn't have an official one because they technically had a day off because they're backed up. They also played overtime, which was good for the Steelers because that means their short week got even shorter. Oh, I forgot to mention, Minka Fitzpatrick was on the Pat McAfee show. Did you see apparently Mike Tomlin is going to be on there tomorrow?
Yeah, that's really cool. I can't believe that he got him to go on.
Yeah, I cannot believe that Mike Tomlin would do that, but I know that Tomlin was a fan of Patton back around the time he was retiring. Tomlin was trying to, or I think it was 2 years ago, he was trying to see, or might have even been last year, he was trying to see if McAfee would come out of retirement.
Yeah, come on home to Pittsburgh. McAfee is a Pittsburgh native. For those
from Plum, Pennsylvania, which is just right down the road.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Saints had a huge breakout of COVID, didn't they?
They did, but it was all coaches. So weird and random, except for Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, who is not playing yet because of his injuries, so it hasn't really mattered. They didn't have any go on the COVID reserve today, but it was a combination of 8 strength and conditioning coaches, positional coaches, and then one nutritionist. So kind of bizarre, but all the players are good, supposedly.
Interesting. And then I think the Cowboys still have a decent amount on the COVID list. All right, so Steelers, Bills, let's get into it. Wow, I was not expecting the Steelers to be able to pull this one out, and it certainly wasn't pretty at times, but over the past year, we've seen a bunch of different instances where the Steelers are winning games without putting together 60 minutes. It was more of a 60-minute performance from the defense, but all in all, just one of those things where you take the win, but there's a lot of work that still feels like there needs to be done, especially on offense.
Yeah, I'm just really tired of the offense starting slow. Like, it's been a thing where the Steelers are a second half team for what feels like now like a year. Like, they have to make these ridiculous comebacks after halftime. Like, namely the Colts game, one of the only games they won to end last year, going before they got into the playoffs. And it's just like, this is what their offense is. The offense puts up absolutely nothing for an entire half, and then they have to fight back in the second half where they finally show life. And that's exactly what we saw in this game. They punted 5 times, and they had 6 drives go nowhere. The 6th drive being the end of the half where they took a knee to end the 22 seconds. And then in the second half, they had, 5 drives, and they all resulted in points. No more punts. Like, all just really, really solid drives. Which, it's, like, promising, but it's just, like, annoying that they can't get it going early. Well, like, I can't remember the last time they got first drive points. Like, first drive points don't exist anymore for the Steelers. It's been a very, very long time.
I'm on it. I'll look it up.
Dude, I think you're going to have to go back over a season and a half. Like, it's been a very long time since they've been able to put up points on their first drive. Maybe a field goal is more recent. Definitely, it's been forever since a touchdown, at the very least. But regardless, I don't like the Steelers could put themselves in so much better positioning by having at least being able to put up more than 3 or 6 points in the first half. Like, you got to be able to score at least a touchdown worth of points in a half to give your team a chance. Like, we relied on the defense heavily in this game, and they played really well. I thought they did. I thought the corners didn't miss a beat. I thought Hayden did really well. I thought Cameron Sutton did really well. I thought James Pierre did really well. I thought Trey Norwood, as a 7th-round rookie, did decent. I know that's a little bit controversial, but I thought for what he was asked to do, come in and start immediately, I thought he did solid. But yeah, I mean, I need more from the offense to start. Is the point of all this? Like, they shouldn't be down with 0 points to end a half. Like,
I remember
the offense
when it
has
was.
too much. I'm sorry, what?
Sorry to interrupt you, but I do remember when their last opening drive touchdown was, and I remember now because they actually scored touchdowns on their first 2 drives in this game. Do you remember?
Why do I feel like it's the Bengals, but I don't remember?
It was not the Bengals. It was the Titans last year.
Oh, yeah, the Titans game was really good. I forgot about that.
Well, it was really good in the first 2.5 quarters, but
yeah.
Because, again, they can't put together a whole game. Anyways, I think the last time they did it before that would have been that 2018 game against New England.
Yeah, just really bad not to be able to get a fast start with all the talent you have on offense. You'd expect I know.
So that just means they've had 1 opening drive touchdown in the last 2 full seasons, plus an additional playoff game, plus the last 2 regular. So 32, 33, 34. So 35 games it's happened 1 time. And they managed to do it twice in that 1 game.
Yeah, pretty funny how that works. I guess they just had a really good game plan for Tennessee to start.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, well, let's talk about this offense then, because realistically, what were we expecting from this offense? If you look back, think about the last 2 games the Steelers have played against Buffalo. They've scored exactly 10 and 15 offensive points. Was it really unreasonable to, at the end of the day, say 16 offensive points? Do you really think that's outrageous to expect from them at the end of the day?
No, it's consistency. Might be bad consistency, but it is consistency.
No, but I'm trying to make a point that the Bills do have a good defense. They were playing on the road to open the season. They've got a brand new offense that they're trying to unpack. They've got 2 rookie starters on the offensive line. They have 4 starters playing a lot of snaps that are rookies, including Pat Freiermuth and obviously Najee Harris, who played every single snap. And many of these guys are playing in front of fans for the first time in the NFL. Not just the rookies, but there's also a learning process because a lot of these guys played the entire year last year without fans. So on the whole, to look back and see 252 total yards, to see just 16 offensive points, that's not surprising. And I think expecting more than that would have been asking for a lot for everything that was going against this offense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that the offense just isn't.
I still think there's room to criticize, though, which is kind of, I think, where you're getting at. And if I may, I think it comes in either the unwillingness or inability to adjust from the standpoint of, I don't know that they changed a bunch at halftime. I just think they executed better. But I'm thinking there needs to be more done in terms of, okay, this short passing game isn't working. There needs to be more play action. I mean, there was a lot of play action, but there needs to be more hanging onto the ball. There needs to be more max protect stuff. I felt like there could have been a lot more done to try and back the Bills' defense up a bit. But at the end of the day, I just think that Ben and Matt Canada didn't trust the offensive line enough to try these things, which is why I do have hope for the offense in terms of improving throughout the season. I think that you'll start to see more, but I think that that's a big reason why we saw a lot of what looked like last year's offense, just because there was so much riding against this offense, particularly the offensive line, that I think they're just trying to take baby steps with it right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair because the offensive line is forcing them kind of into the same position they were last year.
Right or wrong, too. Like, you can make the argument they should have done it anyways, but, I mean, I kind of feel that way, and I guess I'm assuming you do too, right?
That they had to do it, or
that they should have tried to open it up a little more, let the consequences be damned. You have to try to win this game, and it worked out that they didn't. That they kind of played the same style and just didn't turn the ball over. But I think generally speaking, you're not going to win games that way against a team that's probably, let's be honest, better than the Steelers as far as it's been the last year. I think that you generally have to take chances, right?
Yeah, you need those explosive plays. The explosive plays are what wins you games, and you're not going to really get those explosive plays by throwing underneath, especially when you're inaccurate throwing underneath.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on top of all those missed throws that Ben had, and the fact that the running game was pretty much non-existent again, and the offensive line was missing blocks, is just that, it's just strange that all the Steelers ended up out explosive playing the Bills, and a lot of that has to do with the defense, and we will get to that. But I don't know, it is strange too, because even though I overall came away from had a bad taste in my mouth coming out of this game, they still put up 230 yards on their last, I think, 4 drives outside of the kneel down, and they scored on their last 5 drives. So they were definitely improving, but it's like they managed to get lucky enough in this one, and it's just one of those things where you hope that it doesn't continue and you hope to see growth, but it makes you nervous.
I am definitely nervous because I felt like a lot of it was luck. Like, I mean, how many drives were kept going because of a penalty on the Bills? How many drives were Levi Wallace just absolutely getting torched? Like, it's just getting destroyed. Like, I'm pretty sure I am worried going forward because I don't know how many games that the Steelers can be winning in, like, the penalty battle and the turnover battle. It took the Steelers to not turn over the ball. Yeah, it's not sustainable. The Steelers didn't turn over the ball in here officially because there was one that got taken back by a penalty. And they won the penalty battle, and they won 23-16. I'm not sure if the team throws like one interception or fumbles once and loses it, I'm not sure they still win. Like, it's like the margin for error is so small for things outside the Steelers' control. And then I still am really worried about Ben's accuracy and decision making. There were some, like, what we came away with on the Chase Claypool catch, right? The one that was really good, the 22-yard catch, that's a great catch, but more like it was just like he was blanketed like that. You give your receivers a chance, and it worked out. But, like, I didn't see Ben making good decisions all day. So, like, every once in a while you see that, you're like, okay, he gave his guy a chance, fine. But, like, that's kind of how it was all day. And then more concerning was the underneath stuff. The running game didn't work out. I consider short passes an extension of the running game. Najee Harris was targeted 3 times. 2 of those times were thrown over his head. Like, catchable, yeah, and you kind of hope your first-round running back is able to reel one in. But, like, they weren't accurate whatsoever. Like, Ben did not put it where it needed to be. And it's just, I am so worried going forward that we're not going to get those DPI calls. We're not going to get those lucky catches. We're not going to win the penalty battle. And we're not... us not having a turnover is, like, a rarity in itself. Like, I remember talking about all last year, waiting for that one game where the Steelers didn't have a turnover in it. And it's like, it's such a big deal. Like, it's not something that's really common that we've seen in this team in, like, the past, like, 2 years. It's just, I don't think it's sustainable. I am very scared for this team going forward. The defense needs to stay as good as they are.
Can I play devil's advocate here?
Of course.
There are not going to be many games in which everything needs to go right like it did on Sunday. They're not going to be playing the Bills in Buffalo with a left side of the, left tackle to center had 4 games, 5 games of NFL experience going into Sunday. You're not going to have this perfect storm of things going against you where you need every single thing to go right, including a special teams touchdown just to win. It's not going to be this hard for any other game besides Kansas City this year.
I don't know, man. The Steelers have the hardest strength of schedule, and they versed the Browns twice. The Ravens aren't what they used to be. I'm actually more confident in sweeping
They're still
them.
divisional games.
Yeah, it's still a divisional game.
I don't think that the Steelers could lose both games to the Browns, and I still would feel better, I think. I mean, we'll see, but they're still a ways away. One of those games is after a bye week, and divisional games are typically closer. I think that this was one of the toughest games the Steelers will have played all year, just in terms of all the stuff we talked about, where you've got the new offense, you've a 39-year-old quarterback, all the inexperience and shuffling along the offensive line, a defense that struggled to contain Josh Allen at times last year, Stephon Diggs maybe the best receiver in the NFL, and a team that the Steelers had struggled to put pressure on the quarterback with. I think all of that factored in. I just don't think that you're going to need everything to go right to win against the Raiders or the Bengals or maybe even the Packers or the Broncos going forward. I think that this offense can improve, and I'm not sure how much better Ben can play. I do think he can play better, because remember last year during the Steelers' 11-0 start, even if he wasn't playing great, remember he was still being talked about as an MVP candidate, even a dark horse one towards the end of that 11-0 start. And he only had, 6 interceptions in the first 11 games?
Yeah, he was doing good on that front. He wasn't turning over the ball.
Now, he's never going to be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers in terms of throwing passes and making decisions, but we've seen him be more of the game manager stylistically, that type of guy, rather than the gunslinger that he used to be. Because he's not a gunslinger anymore. He's much closer to the game manager type that Peyton Manning was at the end of his career, and I still think he has a better arm than Peyton Manning did at that point. So, what does that mean for this offense? I think what it means is when the offensive line gels, whenever that is, I just think that it raises the floor. I see this as a low ceiling offense, but with this defense, I think that's okay. You can agree or disagree with me, Austin. I feel like you agree. I just see that the biggest question still being the offensive line. And once they gel, it raises the floor. That's all.
I do agree that I think that there is hope for the offense, and that Ben can just continue on with the closer to a game manager than the gunslinger, and that the offensive line is the bigger problem going forward, because everything runs through the offensive line, the passing and the running. Just gonna have to see in other games how they do. I'm really just concerned about those big games like the Chargers, Chiefs, the Browns twice, Seahawks. Those will be the tough games.
So your big concern being the offensive line. let's talk a little bit about those 5 in particular. Who did you think played the best and who had you most concerned?
Of which 5? I'm sorry.
The starting 5 offensive line.
Oh, who played the best and who was I the most concerned with? I was most concerned with Okorafor because he's still not good at run blocking, and I think that he's just like at best like average out there. Again, he's a guy that was never really supposed to be a starter on that side. He was never really supposed to be a starter ever, but I feel like he could get better if he gets moved back to the position that he was trading for the entire time. On the other side, I was impressed with Dan Moore. I thought that Dan Moore did really, really well in that game. And no disrespect to Kevin Dotson. I think Kevin Dotson did fine, but I thought Dan Moore did well, and I think PFF graded him as the highest offensive lineman in terms of grade too.
He didn't play perfectly either. He did make a decent amount of mistakes, but I think considering, again, all the factors going against him in this one, I thought he held his own. I thought he, when we were talking about throwing the baby in the deep end, I thought he treaded water.
Yeah, I thought he did well enough. Exactly. As a guy thrown in there.
And for Okorafor, a guy that is, again, only 24 years old, the last offensive lineman taken when Mike Munchak was a member of the coaching staff here, his last project, if you will, he was a project player, and I kept seeing him as a guy, 6'6", 320 pounds, could move pretty well. He's just has not turned into the guy that I thought he could be. And I know that moving back to the right side is tough. I think left is his better side, but he is never going to be a guy that can move people in the running game unless if he changes a lot about the way he plays, and I just don't think that's going to happen here. And in pass protection, he just gets muscled around too much. I almost wonder if he should move to guard, and I don't think that's a good idea either.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like Filer doing it when he was a tackle first and moved back and kicked inside. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I wanted Okorafor to be better. He has the intangibles, but he's just not. I don't think he's ever going to come around to that. We still has a little bit of time to prove it, but I haven't seen anything to show anything really different. So
he might have 2 weeks if Banner comes back.
He might have 2 weeks, and that's it. Yeah, and then he might not be a starter anymore at all.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too. Of the top 3 tackles when Banner is healthy, of those 3, excluding Joe Haig, who is the one guy that we know can play both spots at least competently enough?
The bull spots?
Both left and right tackle.
Competently? I don't know any of them that could do it.
Okay. I mean, what I'm trying to say is Okorafor can play both.
I was going to say, yeah.
Dan Moore,
I was like,
I see.
I thought you were going for Okorafor, but I was like, competently.
Well enough to be on an NFL roster. How about that?
That is fair, yes. Shaquille Okorafor can do that.
Because Dan Moore has not played much right tackle, and conversely, Banner has not played much left tackle. So I think if you're in a situation where if Dan Moore's playing just well enough and Banner comes back, I'd be sitting Okorafor. Unless if you're concerned about snap counts with Banner, I'd be sitting Okorafor based on this past week.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still some time to evaluate if something goes wrong. If Dan Moore absolutely blows it against Raiders and somehow Chukwuma Okorafor is just amazing, you could reconsider as time goes on. You have till like after week 3 when Banner comes back to decide that.
Any other thoughts on the offense?
No, I think we're good.
All right. So, obviously the big story in this game is the Steelers' defense, how legit it looks after holding the Buffalo Bills' offense to just 16 points and frustrating Josh Allen, sacking him 3 times and limiting him to just 5 yards per completion, or 5 yards per attempt. Yeah, 5 yards per attempt, I believe. And a 79.7 quarterback rating. The Bills just, they were able to move the ball, but they just could not punch it in outside of that one drive at the end of the first half there. And you want to talk about a defense that, you had some concerns with Tuitt not being there and with TJ Watt coming off his contract situation. Let me be the first to say that I was wrong, and I'm very happy that I was wrong about Watt. He played what seemed to be a normal complement of snaps in this game. and was as impactful as ever with 2 sacks and a forced fumble in this game. Maybe the turning point in this game with his forced fumble was dynamic all day, and he might not have even been the Steelers' best defensive player. In fact, I think he was not.
Yeah, it's kind of nutty, too. You look at, like, the quarterback hit stats, it's just like, oh, this guy has 1, this guy has 1, Melvin Ingram has 1, and then TJ Watt has 5 quarterback hits. Absolutely nasty. He did not skip a beat at all. And I don't know where you were going to go exactly next. I think you're going to talk about the best player, but can I just say that Melvin Ingram was the best one-tackle player I have ever seen? He did not put up anything on the stat sheet, but Jesus Christ, my man was bullying that offensive line with pressure. Melvin
all
Ingram,
over the place too,
everywhere, absolutely crazy. That one tackle was a tackle for a loss. He also had a pass defense, but he was just nutty. He looked so strong out there as a rotational piece. That's amazing. That's great value. It's very early to tell, but it might be one of the best free agent signings the Steelers have had in a while, and it's competing with Joe Hayden. But for value, it might end up being Melvin Ingram.
You there, Austin?
Yeah, I'm here. Did it cut out?
It cut out on my audio. I'm sure you were fine, though. I wanted to... When you were saying that, it made me want to look up an article from PFF. But, yeah, you know who Melvin Ingram kind of reminded me of watching him play yesterday? Was James Harrison.
A little. It was really like that, where he's bullying people with strength.
So, PFF, Sam Monson was talking about Melvin Ingram being a legitimate upgrade over Bud Dupree in terms of a pass rusher. And, I mean, I don't think that I don't agree necessarily with how they thought Bud Dupree was as a player. But in terms of pass rushing, if Melvin Ingram is actually a legitimate upgrade, I mean, he was legitimately, I'd say, elite as a pass rusher on Sunday. And you talked about the disruption he caused. And that just goes to show you that last year he was injured, and even though he didn't get any sacks last year, he was still super impactful, and he was again on Sunday as well. I came away maybe most surprised at just how well he played, not just against as a pass rusher, but also in setting the edge too. He was phenomenal, and on a defense where there are a lot of great players, having him is like an insane luxury to be the number 3 outside linebacker.
Yeah, absolute steal. It is insane to me. I remember that conversation saying, man, I wanted Justin Houston instead. Because
who, to be fair, is still good.
Yeah, Houston looked actually solid for Baltimore, but for the money and for what Melvin Ingram gave us last night, and obviously after we saw his tape, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? The sacks don't matter that much. He's like a Stephon Tuitt, and we saw that this game. Again, didn't light up the stat sheet, but was one of the best defensive players on the field. Absolutely nutty on Sunday against the Bills.
Rank these 3 players: Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, and Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon
Is that the
Clowney,
order?
number 1.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, didn't you see that one play he had at South Carolina in college when he was there?
Never.
That forced fumble.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
The one play that got him paid for all these years.
And
Crazy.
to be fair, I know he did a lot more than just that, but it's just the coverage he got before that draft. I felt like that was the only play. You could have told me he played 1 career snap, and I couldn't have told you no because I would have only seen 1 play. But
It's lit.
I digress. It was my order in saying it, Ingram, Houston, and Clowney, how you'd rate those 3 signings?
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Obviously,
100%.
it's, again, just 1 game, but so far. And sorry, go ahead.
There's a big gap between Houston and Clowney. Paying Clowney what he's getting is absolutely awful for what you're going to get in terms of play.
While we're talking about edge rushers, Alex Highsmith, I thought was pretty solid too, and to be the 3rd best edge rusher in this game, I don't think there's any shame in that because I thought he was pretty disruptive and got in Allen's face several times himself.
Yeah, no, Highsmith looked just as good, just like basically where he left off last year. He had more stats on the stat sheet. Like you said, though, Melvin Ingram was probably the better player. So, but it's no disrespect to Highsmith. Like, Highsmith did really, really well as well. It's kind of like going to be the theme talking about the defense. Like, there's not a lot of negatives we could talk about other than, like, rookies playing and making some mistakes.
This team held the highest scoring team in the AFC last season to 16 points. I mean, it was a darn good performance and one that I was not expecting. Keeping them under 24 would have been a victory to me.
Yeah, because it's not easy to do. I mean, how many times did they score under 20 points last year? Can be a lot.
I think it was just twice. I'm going to look that up, actually.
Yeah.
You want to touch on the defensive line and probably the player of the game?
Yeah. So the best player of the game that he's referencing was Cameron Hayward. The man was disgustingly disruptive. Like, we were just talking about Melvin Ingram. Cameron Hayward was like, we're talking about a king to a god. That's the step up we got here. Melvin Ingram did so good. Cameron Hayward was out of his mind. I mean, he was getting his hands up in passing lanes. He had 2 pass defense. He was getting in there on sacks. He was bullying the offensive line on the other side. He was getting tackles for a loss. Absolutely great play. And PFF rated him as not only the best defensive player of the week, he was the highest graded player just in general of week 1 with a 95.3 grade from PFF. Absolutely played out of his mind and deserved the recognition for it. Always been underrated in NFL circles, I feel like. I feel like he's not like a guy people think about when you think of great pass rushers, but man, does he play so well for us. Absolutely great game from him.
So the Bills actually, it happened 4 times last season, including
Really?
including once in the playoffs against Baltimore.
Wow, that feels so... It feels wrong. It feels like it was less than that. I believe you. That's not me saying you're wrong. It's just...
Now, to be fair,
yeah.
the three of the 4, so not the playoff game, 3 of the 4 came in a 3-week span. So it was back to back to back. The first one was that COVID game against the Titans where the Titans all had COVID and the game got messed up and the Bills went into Tennessee and got smoked. That was kind of an odd game.
I remember that. That was so bad. Damn.
And then they lost the next week hosting Kansas City. That's a game where they could have scored a lot more, but I think they made a lot of like aggressive decisions, like trying to go for it on 4th down when they probably didn't need to.
Oh, just like in this game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, and we'll get to that too. And then the following week they beat the Jets 18-10, which I do not remember at all. They didn't score a single touchdown.
Huh.
Yeah, Tyler Bass hit 6 field goals in a row to end the scoring.
Wow.
So this is like, I'm getting like Chiefs playoff game vibes from this game. Tyler Bass hit 53, 48, 46, 29, 37, and 40. So yeah.
Absolutely wild. I don't remember that at all.
So that was that. So, okay. You touched on Cam Hayward, maybe the best game he's played in his entire career. And what a career it is. I mean, that's saying something.
Yeah, I mean, he was a force to be reckoned with. The poor Bills offensive line had no idea how to handle him. I mean, they were trying to figure out how to handle him, how to handle TJ Watt, how to handle Alex Highsmith, Melvin Ingram, all at the same time. That's hard to do. It's not an easy task.
And not lost on me and you is the fact that Tyson Alualu and Chris Wormley and the rest of the defensive line played up to their billing as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about everyone that played on defense in this game. I'm pretty sure you could say something good about everybody. I thought Tyson Alualu did well. I think Chris Wormley looked really solid out there, especially for what he's considered, like, the backup guy he is. Like, it's been like a general theme. Like, the Steelers are just good at... They have a next man up mentality on the defense that just works. Like, I feel like those guys always come in. And, I mean, I guess the play of the other guys elevates the guys around them, but yeah, I think that they all did pretty well.
I need to see exactly. I think the Steelers played something like 25 players on defense in this game. I miss having my PFF subscription because I could see charting statistics, but alas, I do not have that right now. But I mean, and let's transition to kind of the linebackers in the back end. Devin Bush, Joe Schobert were swapping out in this game, and then obviously the defensive backfield saw the usual suspects, but there was also guys like Arthur Millette, Trey Norwood. I mean, everyone played defense in this game, and they all played pretty well. Trey Norwood did get beat for what could have been a deep touchdown, but besides that, I thought he played well.
Yeah, for a 7th rounder coming in to play the first game like that, I was still pretty impressed. So I can't even say bad things about him. I mean, it wasn't detrimental enough. Bills only scored 16 points still, so.
With all that being the case, do you still think... I think it's still fair to think that the Bills missed a lot of opportunities in this game, too.
Yeah, they made stupid decisions. They shot themselves in the foot quite a few times. They had a few drops. They had that one that you referenced with Trey Norwood not getting over in time. I felt like Emmanuel Sanders could have caught that. It didn't look like he gave up. It looked like, I don't know, he didn't even try to catch it. I thought that there was a chance for that, but hey, better off this way anyway for us. So, I mean, there's still room to improve. It wasn't perfect. It felt perfect, but it wasn't perfect. The Bills did help the Steelers out a little bit, but I still like where the defense was at this past Sunday.
All right, and lastly, why don't we touch on special teams, because it was the good and the bad in this one.
Yeah, bad punts, bad return to start the game, allowed a bad return to start the game.
And that first return, you're probably thinking, oh boy, here we go. It's going to be a long day.
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah McKenzie immediately got out and returned it, 75 yards? Something like
75 yards immediately. And might I add, the defense giving up just 5 yards on that drive, I think, was a huge part of that game.
Yeah, I mean, they score a touchdown. It could get out of control in a much different way, much quicker. I mean, the defense was put into a bad position to start, and they immediately responded. It was really good from them.
All right, and then as far as the good goes, that punt block by Miles Killebrew and scored by Ulysses Gilbert III, you did a little digging there and saw that one former Steeler got his legs tied in pretzel there.
Yeah, I watched the play over and over again, and it's Tyler Matakevich that lets Miles Killebrew slip by. Just kind of like confusing because I don't know what he's doing. I'd like to pretend that Danny Smith had a in on Tyler Matakevich that he knew about and said to attack it, because that'd be really cool and really good coaching. But I just think it was just a really good play by Killebrew, matched with Tyler Matakevich not having a bad rep as well. So, yeah, but that was incredible. Incredible play by Killebrew, and makes the free agent signing all worth it in week 1, because he's a cheap contract that plays special teams. And he did his job. He played special teams.
I just retweeted something from Brad Congilio for the blitzing in Pittsburgh. So he got his data from PFR. He's looking at number of total pressures and number of blitzes this week on that graph. You know, where the bottom left is not blitzing much and not getting a lot of pressure. Top right is blitzing a lot and getting a lot of pressure. Ideally, you want to be in the top left corner of the graph. And if you go on Twitter, Austin, you'll see it. The Steelers are way up in the top left corner of the graph. They blitzed, so I heard some accounts say the Steelers blitzed more than 4 players just twice. Brad here is saying that happened once. Regardless, it would be less blitzes than any other team in the NFL, and they had 18 pressures on the quarterback, which is 4 more than any other team.
It's pretty crazy what the Steelers defense does with that minimal effort. I say minimal effort, but I was just with the 4-man standard pass rush. It's absolutely crazy that they're generating that much pressure. And I mean, we saw it. It felt like the Bills' offensive line was getting destroyed, and that's without extra men. I mean, I can't imagine what it's going to be like for most teams to go up against Pittsburgh defense. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough for them when they could just have all those guys sitting back in coverage while getting a pretty high pass rush win rate for, in terms of Steelers defense anyway. So it is pretty crazy to see that they're all alone in the top left quadrant of this graph because they blitzed literally only once and they still led the NFL in pressures on the week, and it's not even particularly close. I mean, the next closest people were the Seahawks and the Jaguars, who were 4 less than the Steelers.
And what's wild about that is last year the Steelers had one of the highest blitz percentages in recent memory, just under, like a tick under 50%. So, I mean, they were getting serious pressure with just 3 and 4 pass rushers. And if that's how much of an upgrade Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith in year 2 are providing, I mean, what is this team going to be able to do when Stephon Tuitt returns? Because it sounds like he might be coming back in 2 weeks.
That would be great. I hope that he's ready. I hope that he's in football shape and ready to go because, I mean, the Steelers' defense has a chance to be historic. I feel like I've been saying that the past 3 years. They've led the league in sacks the past 3 years, but I don't know if I'd call them historic. They've been really good.
Got to win
really
to do
good.
that.
Yeah, but you got to win to do something. And if they could take the Steelers to a Super Bowl this year, if it's mostly on them, this could go down as one of the best defenses ever. Like in the conversation, not like number one, but I mean like in the conversation for what are some of the best defenses you've seen in your lifetime, and this would probably be one of them if it gets you there.
So since the bye week in 2016, pretty much when we started doing this podcast, the Steelers have had a sack in every game. And
yeah,
in that time, they've led the NFL in sacks every year. And going back to that point in 2016, starting with that Ravens game after the bye week where they lost and fell to 4-4, from that game on, they've led the NFL in sacks. Even in 2016, they finished with 38 sacks. I think 28 came in those final 7 or 8 games or something like that. So, I mean, you want to talk about getting after the quarterback? That's something that they have done with incredible consistency since then. And, to be fair, with Keith Butler, 2016, when the defense started getting sacks, that was the middle of his second season as defensive coordinator. So outside of his first season and half of his second season, he's been able to, and, I know there's a lot of talent there to work with, but that's been the hallmark of this team. So how much better can it get?
I'm not sure. I remember saying the one good thing about Keith Butler was the pressure that he provides and the sacks that this team gets. I mean, it's the one constant that stayed with the team. No matter what they change, the consistency is going to be that their pass rush is going to hit home no matter what they're deploying. I mean, they just have the right personnel for it, and he coaches it really well for whatever reason. He might do some other frustrating stuff like linebackers on wide receivers, but the pass rush is top tier.
That is actually wild to me to think about, that this sack streak has existed as long as this podcast has. We literally started this podcast right when the streak started.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Random and insane.
I just think it ties that much more to this streak, how important it is. And this was a game I thought it could be broken. I think you actually predicted it would be broken in this game.
Yeah, because last time the Steelers and Bills in the past couple times, the Bills have been really good at protecting Allen.
Just 2 sacks total the last 2 years.
Yeah, but absolutely destroyed. The offensive line had stood no chance this game. I mean, they're lucky they didn't get more sacks happening to them.
Should feel good about the Steelers' chances the next 2 weeks against Vegas and Cincinnati, right?
Oh, yeah. Vegas's offensive line isn't very good either, all in all. I mean, they just lost their starting guard. Who knows if their other starting guard, Richie Incognito, will be back for this game. Should be... And, oh my God, Alex Leatherwood looked awful. Absolutely got destroyed by Justin Houston several times. But, yeah. Fun going forward.
Looking at this schedule, through week 15 or 16 is about... I only see like 2 instances where the Steelers could not register a sack unless if something crazy happens, like that game against the Raiders 3 years ago, that infamous game where I think the Steelers had like 1 sack or like 2 sacks and practically no pressure the entire game. I see the game in Green Bay being problematic for that. At Cleveland after the bye week. hosting the Chargers in Week 11, and then at Kansas City and hosting Cleveland at the end. That's it. I think the Steelers could easily get sacks against the rest of the teams they face.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that are built to handle the Steelers' their edge rush. Like
no team exists that can handle the rush they had last week. That doesn't exist.
Exactly. Oh no, yeah, no. There's just no one that could. It doesn't matter. You might have the best fullback to put in there on max protect and the two best tight ends. It doesn't matter. T.J. Watt was getting doubled and held every play. That's an exaggeration, but I mean it really felt like it. I mean, like on the plays that he wasn't getting doubled, he was getting held. So. There's just not good. If the Steelers pass rush could play it that way, they're unstoppable. There's no one stopping them. There's not an offensive line good enough.
All right. Any final thoughts on this game before we move into Week 2 against the Las Vegas Raiders?
No. I think we are good.
Alrighty then. Well, in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the Stronger Than Steel podcast.
One more thing.
Yes.
One more thing. We got to do Thursday Night Football.
Oh, yes. That's right. All right, so NFC East showdown, the New York Giants at the Washington football team. Washington is still getting a field goal despite Taylor Heineke starting in place of Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Giants going to stay winless here?
Give me the football team to cover. I can't. I predicted the Giants to go winless. I'm going to keep doing it until they actually win. I mean, I could pick them +3 to still lose, but what's the fun in that? I'm going to pick the football team to cover.
I'll take the Giants to win this game straight up. I haven't seen enough from Taylor Heineke, even though he's played well in limited action. I think the Giants' defense will play pretty well, and Saquon Barkley's supposed to have a full workload this week. Apparently he's quote-unquote being unleashed. Whether or not that comes to fruition, we'll see. I do think that Daniel Jones will pull the Giants away with the victory here. I'm pretty sure Daniel Jones has 8 career victories, and 5 of them have come against Washington or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think they have Washington's number.
That doesn't make sense. He's only been in the league 2 seasons. I have to look this up now because I'm me.
Daniel Jones has only been in the league for 2 seasons? Why do I feel like it's been 3?
There's 2 Daniel Joneses. Oh my goodness.
I was going to say, he came in the Dwayne Haskins class.
2019, yeah. So this is year 3.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say.
Okay, so they beat
6
Washington.
6 games against Washington.
Well, this will be number 5.
Yeah. By the end of this year, not 6. My bad.
He's 4-0 against them.
Yeah, so he has their number, but
not this time. Taylor Heineke in full God mode. But okay, well, enjoy Thursday Night Football then. And in the meantime, you can feel free to email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions or feedback you'd like to offer the show. Please check out our new home for our podcast, which is anchor.fm/strongerthansteel. You can find our podcast posted in there and on a bunch of other platforms like Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and of course on YouTube where we always post our episodes. So please feel free to check us out there. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. In the meantime, Austin, thank you for joining me. We'll be back on probably Friday. That's the plan, right? Friday?
Yeah, should be Friday.
Okay. Well, until next time, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Hope you enjoyed the first week of NFL action, and hopefully you enjoy Thursday night's action with that NFC East showdown. Until next time, from Austin and John, thank you for always listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.